things on the ground, but primarily for us to be able to provide mobile money services, we ride on the network that is first, and then we provide an agent network, so we recruit agents in the market that work and support us in the provision of mobile money services. At the moment, for Zamto Money...
Comfort, for the interest of time.
Sorry.
There was one other question. Could you just quickly, in under 30 seconds, touch on that as well?
For the gentleman?
Yes, the in-store transactions.
That area, you hit the nail on the head. It's a big challenge, and it's, for lack of a better term, it's unfair that we should not be present in the places where the customers are getting day-to-day services. It's a conversation that is active with the retailers, the different retailers, so that they can allow us to be present at the pay points, at the till. It requires integration, it requires aggregation. For a lot of them, they don't want us to be direct with them. They would rather we go through a common aggregator that deals with all payments. There's something that has happened recently. I know to avoid naming retailers, I think I can relate with the retailer that you had that experience with, but there are also some good ones that have happened, and I will name what APSA has done in that they've integrated onto their point of sale terminals all of us mobile money service providers. So if you walk into a Pick and Pay now, at the till, they've actually, and the wonderful thing that Pick and Pay has done is they've actually indicated at the tills that you pay with mobile money. You walk to the till, ask for the APSA terminal, they just ask for your number, Zamto number, your PIN confirmation will come, and you will make your payment. No need for cash. But that is exactly what you want to replicate across all channels, because then we need to move away from money. So that conversation is very active. We're working on it. We haven't yet met your desired expectations, but I can assure you that we're heavy on that one.
Okay, thank you. So we've got the final questions, 2 here and the third one there. Please keep your questions very brief, and then we'll take all 3 questions at a go.
Good afternoon. I think it was a brilliant panel. Thank you very much for your presentations. My question will go to Zani. It's nice speaking with you because I'm a lawyer as well. And it's nice to see that young Africans are taking a step in entrepreneurship and innovation. My question is really on the challenges in legal compliance issues that Seyango has faced in breaking into other markets. Comfort spoke about regulatory challenges, and I think that is a very big hurdle. But as Yango, could you give examples of such challenges that you have faced, how you have perhaps gotten over those challenges, and if there are certain countries, maybe not to name them, but if you could confirm that there are certain countries that you're failing to break into because of such differences in regulation, licensing. I mean, these are things we're always advising would-be business people about in Zambia, but you find that a business won't set up because the laws here are totally different from the laws in Ghana. So how would you answer my question, especially that there are a lot of ministry and government personnel? Perhaps that's something that can go into policy and regulatory changes. Thank you. Oh, my name is Musenge Liankonde. I am with Moishi Banda and Associates. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Agnes, the co-founder and the CEO of Bitcoin for Her Zambia. So now my question goes to Zanako and Zamtel Money. Since we're talking about digital trade and on the blockchain space, we have a digital currency, which is blockchain, and it's taking over. Like we're using it in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. So now, since it does not have the involvement of the government and the banks involved with it, and it's really trading so well. So what are you doing about it to protect your customers from going into the digital cryptocurrency that is at hand? Thank you.
Okay, Good afternoon. My name is Imano Hatembo. I'm with Extrusion Works Limited. So I've tried e-commerce myself. I've tried to create apps, websites, but I always come across two big challenges. That is payments and logistics. So my question is, what is being done between mobile money and banks in order for, if we capture payments from applications, websites, those payments need to be held by either the bank or mobile money so that we're able to take those goods to the customers, and when the customers receive those goods, and then now we can be able to release those funds. So the challenge is sometimes when you create a software or an application, when that payment is done, it comes directly to me as the person who made the application. And if I'm not trustworthy, the customer is at high risk. If I don't send that item, nothing happens. So what is being done in order to protect the customer so that if there's any case of refunds, we can easily refund those customers? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I can take the question from Agnes relating to cryptocurrencies as it were. So this is definitely an area that is developing the world over. Cryptocurrencies are increasingly becoming a form of payment, a form of store of value, which is the purpose that traditional currencies and money performs. Within the context of Zambia, and I believe this is true for a lot of other jurisdictions in Africa, Central Bank, in our case Bank of Zambia, is yet to finalize the formulation of the cryptocurrency regulations, which will permit banks in this jurisdiction to be able to trade in digital currencies. That is why you see that no bank, including ourselves and ACO, have yet to venture in the space of providing cryptocurrency as a payment solution, as a payment option. For as long as Central Bank has not yet created that regulatory framework that allows us to participate in that space, we are not permitted to participate in that space. And like I've said, this is true for a lot of other jurisdictions on the African continent currently. That being the case, we also need to respect and understand as consumers the reason why regulatory frameworks need to be given an opportunity to advance and develop, because those are the ones that create the safety, the security around the value that you have as a consumer, so that you avoid falling in the pitfalls of what we continuously see, where consumers are falling victim and prey to scams in the name of digital currency trading. So what I would advise at this point within the jurisdiction of the country is for us to be very careful when we attempt to get into cryptocurrencies, because the regulatory framework has not yet been finalized that permits us to trade in those currencies within this particular economy. That's what I would say on the question from Agnes. I believe, I hope I've understood the question correctly and given the clarity around where we are at as a society in the direction of adoption of cryptocurrencies and the dangers and the risks thereof currently. Yeah.
Okay. Very briefly, Comfort.
Thank you very much for that question, and thanks, Vincent, for tackling the first one. So on the second question around securing the process of exchange of goods, especially through mobile money, I know we're paying a lot for goods and services through mobile money. However, your request hasn't yet been addressed. I think for me, the response to that is it's an opportunity for us to explore and ensure that the seller and the buyer is secured. All I can comment on is we could consider copying what the banks do, where you introduce escrow, so that if I pay for a good or a service, the money sits in escrow until the recipient confirms that they've received, then it is released to them. I think that's an opportunity for us mobile money service providers to explore and interrogate and see how it can be applied. At the moment, We are living on faith and trust that when I pay you, you will then send my goods. But it's an opportunity that can then be considered for us as well, because it's becoming a normal channel of payments. So for now, there's no solution, but definitely an opportunity that we'll work on.
Great. Zani, very quickly, legal framework.
All right. I think it would be remiss of me to not answer the first question by Lesa. So the first question you'd asked around trust and digital transactions, my portfolio specifically looks at the compliance and regulation aspect from a, I suppose, government relations, public policy aspect. So before we enter any market, we know exactly what the compliance measures are, what the regulations are. So that's part of the pre-entry requirements to be in any market globally. So we'll know what the, whether it's e-contracts or data protection measures, whatever measures are required, we would work on that. So that would be the first one. The second one was on the financial literacy and I suppose the potential recklessness there. As I mentioned with Yango Ventures specifically, it's not just about the money, it's ensuring that there's a capacity building aspect to it, we're ensuring sustainability. So that would require a lot of interaction, and the ventures team has a lot of expertise and ensuring that we get to those goals, giving you the money, capacitating you, and the skill set that's required for that sustainability aspect. Now, the second question from you, Council, my fellow lawyer, thank you so much for that. I think that kind of, what I just said now kind of is a segue into that. But, we conduct quite rigorous pre-market entry understanding of the market, and sometimes we get it wrong. I mean, you'll see it in some instances, it makes headlines where Yango has just been rejected by the government, and a lot of the times it's because there's a lack of understanding of what and who we are. There's a substance over form. In some countries, we're known as a ride-hailing company. In some countries, we're known as a search engine or AI-based company. But it's really about going into the country, being bold enough to sensitize the government on exactly what your unique selling point is, what your value proposition is for the country, understanding the laws and regulations. Sometimes it's because the laws and regulations have not developed enough to accommodate a technology company of our magnitude and stature. And it sounds all high and mighty, but it's really that, with 30 to 40 offerings, you have to do the sensitization work and sometimes co-create, whether it's guidelines and policies to accommodate, because as much as the government creates an enabling environment and can stumble that, they also need to ensure that their citizens are safe. So we work hand in hand to ensure that when we talk about private-public partnerships, it's not just about the money. We're having a very people-centric approach. So I hope that answers you.
You were kicked out of Togo, right?
Mara.
Oh, sorry. We are coming.
I'd actually like to do this. So we're currently in talks. For instance, I can tell you a success story in Benin. We had to go in with, security personnel. It was high risk. It actually felt like a movie. And that's where that misunderstanding comes in. When we sat down with the Minister of Digital and the Minister of Transport and explained exactly who we are and the value not just for ourselves as a company, but for the user base, the drivers, the consumers, and sort of the partnership that we give in urban mobility, we've been welcomed with, just really open arms, and we're currently working on amazing partnerships in the country. And that is a beautiful success story to answer that these things do happen, but you cannot be sheepish and timid in a time of transformation. We are in a digital revolution, and if you're not bold as a company and as individuals, you won't get anywhere.
Absolutely. So, thank you. We have come to the end of our session. I hope it was as exciting as it was for me. I'm super excited about the potential for us monetizing digital platforms, investing in digital platforms, investing in youth so we can have more seamless platforms, investing in more mobile money and bank transactions and integration so that we can reach last mile delivery on financial products and services, and ensuring that every corner of each country in Africa is touched and is enabled to transact and to trade and to gain access to money and products and financial products, but also gain the capacity and the financial literacy that people need to safely and seamlessly trade across Africa, from in-country and also across the borders of Africa. So as we close this session, I'll give you a 30-second pitch on your call to action. What are you in your individual and also institution capacity doing or going to do to ensure that we close the gaps? 15% is a low number. We need to increase the numbers for us to be able to successfully and proudly say we are promoting intra-Africa trade and monetizing platforms. And when we talk about platforms, we're not just talking about web platforms, phones, the various platforms, and also more innovation for us to be able to increase accessibility. So what is your call to action in 30 seconds? I'll start with you, Vincent, and we'll end with you, Uche, who's online.
Okay, thank you. I think allow me to ride on the call to action that the president of Botswana gave yesterday. And he said we need to translate words spoken into transformational action. We can speak all we want, but at the end of the day, are we translating what we are talking about into transformational action? Speaking as Zanaco, we are the largest bank by far in terms of our digital outreach from an agency banking perspective, with over 33,000 agents countrywide. We have risen to the challenge. That is clearly not yet enough. The challenge for financial inclusion in this country is still huge, and we are up to the task to ensure that we continue on that journey that we have embarked and we are market leader in, to ensure that we drive up the numbers that we are all hearing of. A significant portion of society is still financially excluded. A significant portion of the society is still starved of access to digital services, and that is, as a bank, embedded into our core strategy. We are aiming to be a leading transactional bank in this market, which we are, but we still understand that the opportunity and the challenge to reach the furthest corners of this country still remains an untapped aspect. That's our call to action.
Thank you. Your 30 seconds, Comfort.
Thank you, Mara. For us as Zamto Money, the challenge is big to ensure that we reach the farthest of the country in making Zamto Money services available. But beyond that, we are looking at strategic partnerships and collaboration so that we can then achieve the task of making sure that trade is also supported under mobile money services. What we are doing already is what partly I gave as my response to Ms. Portia, of how we are working with local entrepreneurs, SMEs, who are operating as agents and helping us serve our customers and our markets. But also at a global level, there are partnerships that we're forging with countries, companies, or organizations that are beyond the borders of Zambia, who've got payment aggregation platforms and payment aggregation solutions, so that through that we can reach the global world and we can reach customer who is beyond the borders of Zambia. So we are forging strategic partnerships and collaborations even as we operate within Zambia. That's for Zamto Money, Mara. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you so much. Call to action quickly, 3 very quick ones. One, for governments, data can still be more affordable. There can be better enabling environment structures. Digital infrastructure can still be deepened. Still sad that there's some countries where you can't get money out of a country. So we're talking about trading and, you can't even, take money out. It's sad that I can't, for example, exchange my Kenya shillings directly into Kwacha, for example, when I'm here, and vice versa. And this goes across Africa. We have to use other currencies. I think there's so much more that can be done in enabling that environment. Skills capacity building can be done by all actors that engage with young people, especially in young women and marginalized and disenfranchised communities. So much more can be done to actually enhance capacity to actually access some of this finance. Finance is there, our grants are there, more can be done to have strategic partnerships to get this word out, to enable and give mentorship to a lot of these organizations to actually access these grants, use them, and actually build an environment where young entrepreneurs and innovators can actually thrive with the funding that they're receiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Zani.
So three. First one, to all the young women, whether in this room or listening to this anywhere, if this is repeated, be bold, throw yourself into things, you'll learn, make mistakes, people are doing it, men, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, because in 20 years' time, we definitely will not have the same opportunities as we do right entrepreneurs, the co-founders of any time, build for your local markets first, but design with regional and global scale in mind. Don't wait for the perfect infrastructure. Start where you're at. But think beyond your borders and focus on trust, not just tech. Monetization follows value, and value follows credibility. So that's for the entrepreneurs. For the policymakers, sorry, Mara, just one
Your 30
last
seconds are up.
For the policymakers, my friends, I would say prioritize regulatory harmonization, especially for payments, taxation, and platform classifications. We need legal certainty to unlock investment and to access scale. Support zero rating, so that would really be my friend. And data is a luxury for many users, so that should be the focal point: infrastructure and access to devices. So that really is. Thank you so much.
All right, Uchi, your 30 seconds, your call to action. Can't hear you. Not yet. Tech team.
Know when you can hear me.
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you for an awesome session. So it's in 3 parts. So 1, for the policymakers, be people-centric. Put yourself in the shoes of that woman in a rural area, that young person who just arrived in the city. Think of policies that would really unleash opportunities for them. Number 2 is around digital literacy. So from the perspective of whether it's the private sector or the public sector, some of the problems that we've talked about, whether around trust or around gaps, with very great digital literacy, this can really be eased out. And even for the individuals in the room, learn as much as you can. Now is a new era with AI, with machine learning. Learn rigorously, and then when you learn and do. And finally, I would say that for the private sector in the room, look at your value chain and see how can you unlock opportunities that really give people a direct access to ways they can make money, ways they can build up their businesses. So if you look at globally, some of, let's say, the social media platforms with their creator funds, for example. So how within your value chain can you find similar opportunities for you to unlock that somebody who just joins the digital value chain today is able to really use that to make a living for themselves and live a happier, healthier, fuller life as an African today? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, let's give them a resounding round of applause. Such an amazing panel, great conversations. My call to action is to ensure that as we launch the first youth-centric bank in Zambia and Africa, we partner with each one of you to be able to monetize your agents so that we can have more, mobile money transactions, but also to ensure that some of the funds that the 2 partners have can be pushed on the platform, and we can provide support in capacitating pre-investment and post-investment handholding more African youth to participate. I think we need to think about more access to finance for youth-led businesses in Africa if we're really, really going to hit the numbers. 712 billion by 2050, that's 25 years from now, is not a joke. For us to really amplify that, we need concerted efforts, more collaboration, and more partnerships. On that note, it's Mara Janae, and thank you so much.
Let's put our hands together once again for them, please. Can we have a group photograph for them, please? And we will seize some couple of minutes while we wait for the colleagues who were in the other session to join us. I'm told that they are almost wrapping up over there, but let me take the opportunity to quickly acknowledge at this point in time our supporters and our sponsors who have made this forum possible. Zamtel, Zambia Telecommunication Company Limited. Let's put our hands together for them for helping us to make this event a success. Let's put our hands together for them, please. Sanaco, Zambia National Commercial Bank. Let's clap for them. EcoBank. Let's put our hands together for EcoBank. Zambia Sugar. Let's put our hands together for them. So that was monetizing online platforms for boosting intra-Africa trade. Mara was the moderator, and her distinguished panelist. Shall we put our hands together once again for them, please? That was a good job. Thank you, Mara. It looks like it's deliberate or something. I was supposed to end the next segment by 5 p.m. Unfortunately, I've been pushed to start at 5 p.m. And I'm moderating the next section. It's going to be on data centers and digital identities as a backbone of digital trade in Africa. Almost all the sessions we have had from yesterday till today, almost everybody is talking about digital infrastructure. And that's why this session is going to be important. While we wait for the colleagues to come in, we should have very engaging session going forward from there. Once again, a quick acknowledgement of our sponsors: Zamtel, Zambia Telecommunication Company Limited; Zanaco, Zambia National Commercial Bank; EcoBank; and Zambia Sugar. While we wait for the colleagues, my panelists may be preparing to mount the podium. We'll definitely wait for the colleagues because I'm told that this is supposed to be more or less the final solution as to getting our infrastructure right. All right. The panelist, Mr. Frank Kalimbe, or Mr. Frank Kalimba, is the Director, Systems Development and Support, Smart Zambia. Let's put our hands together for him, please. Mr. Kalimba. I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourself properly. So where I get confused with the last names, please pardon me. We'll get it sorted out. Next is Dr. Chotechi Makong. Dr. Makong is the Director, Coordination and Programs at the AfCFTA Secretariat. Let's put our hands together and welcome him. Next, Ayobami Abiola, Technical Advisor to the Director General, National Identity Management Commission of Nigeria. Let's put our hands together. I think we're going to be joined on the line by Engineer Daniel Murenze. He's a Principal Information Technology Officer, East Africa Community, EAC. Let's put our hands together for him as well. Mr. Johnson Agogbua is the CEO, Kasi Cloud Data Center. Shall we put our hands together to welcome him as well? All right, another quick run through of our partners, and then I will take a short break to try and convince our colleagues in the other room to quickly wrap up and join us. The following have made this forum possible: Zamtel, Zambia Telecommunication Company Limited; Zanaco, Zambia National Commercial Bank; EcoBank; and Zambia Sugar. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We are starting shortly.
years. A journey well traveled. 2024 is a year of reflection and celebration. As we honor 60 years of Zambia's independence as a republic, we also celebrate the 60-year journey of Zambia Sugar. One Zambia, one nation.
Data centers and digital identities as a backbone of digital trade. Basically, we're talking infrastructure for digital trade. And all throughout, yesterday we had a call of action from His Excellency the President, His Excellency the Secretary General. We were reminded, for instance, and the last session, we were again reminded, to make this forum a practical one. Come out with practical solutions to ensure that we get something out of here. Not going back and still struggling to meet the needs that we are already crying about. We're reminded to ensure that we come up with bridging the gap. And the gap here, we're talking about what Dr. Tokmo, for instance, reminded all of us about, that we're supposed to have about 700 data centers in Africa. So far, we only have 100. That's a huge one. We were looking for solutions. Somebody was asking about how AI can fill in that sort of gap. We were also told by Azerbaijan that we can come over and look at what they have done. A lot of investments are being attracted. People are calling for the attraction of investments to fill in this particular gap. And later on after this session, on the one-on-one with the U.S. business centers, we're going to hear a lot about how investments can fill in this gap. But whether we like it or not, we have a gap, infrastructure deficit when it comes to digital trade. And as we move on, we'll share experiences of how these are impeding digital trade on the continent. We're charged, and technocrats and ministers were charged yesterday by His Excellency, the President of Zambia, to come out of this forum and find solutions to the problems of digital trade. Unfortunately, on this session, we have the technocrats, we have the experts who are going to guide us to find the solutions that we're looking for. So, gentlemen and ladies, or lady, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself once again briefly. Tell us how you are connected, or your outfit is connected to, of course, digital centers and digital identities, and how you make them a backbone of digital trade, please. Let me start with you, Mr. Kalimba.
Thank you. My name is Frank Kalimba. I'm Director Systems Development and Support at Smart Zambia Institute, which is a government institution charged with coordinating the digital transformation in the public sector. We are, as a Smart Zambia, connected to data centers and digital ID, because we do coordinate all the digital transformation that is happening in the government public sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. I'm Tsote Simakong, and I serve the continent as the director responsible for coordination and programs of the AfCFTA Secretariat. And until this moment, one of the connections I have concerning this particular topic is that I had the privilege of sitting down with the member states and coming up with the protocol on digital trade. And this protocol does have a particular annex that focuses on digital identities. And of course, there is a very direct link with the data centers, because data has to move, but as data moves, we need to know that data is identifiable to who, and it concerns who. All of that is very important, and it covers the whole ecosystem of what has been discussed so far in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayabami Abiola. I am the technical advisor to the DG, Director General of the National Identity Management Commission of Nigeria. So I'm the technical advisor on coordination, policy, and partnerships. So as regards why I am here representing NIMSI, NIMSI has the largest identity database in Africa with over 118 million individual identities, which we call NINs, National Identity Numbers, which are digital identity that are biometrically linked. So we have a great deal, a large stake in digital identity in Africa. And so that's essentially why I am here on this panel today.
Thank you. Engineer Marinzi, if you can hear us.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Engineer Mrenzi Daniel. I head the Information Communication Technology for the East African Community. These are the 8 member states, but also being part of this panel and also what's going on, I lead the digital transformation for the ESC. You know, we are one of the continental act that has the free movement of people, free movement of goods, free movement of services within our region, where also we have implemented some of the digital IDs and all. So we also host some of the critical data that are under the trade, under customs, under financial services. So it's an important moment for us as the East African to be here to share with you and also bring to the continent what we have achieved and what we can collaborate together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Johnson.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Johnson Agobor. I have the privilege of serving as the Chief Executive Officer of Kasi Cloud Data Centers. My colleague, Dr. Tunde Koka, was supposed to be on. Given conflict, he had asked me to please step in. Tunde is the chairman of Africa Data Center Associations and the chief executive of Open Access Data Centers. A very good colleague, a collaborator in this space. Now, Kasi Cloud, we are a digital infrastructure company based out of Lagos, Nigeria, but Pan-African in terms of ambition, committed to building and operating hyperscale data centers, purpose-built for African consumption. Our vision is to deliver secure, sovereign, and scalable platforms that underpin 1, private and public cloud, 2, AI ecosystems, and digital trade across the continent. So we'll get into what that means during this session.
Yeah.
But it is an honor to be part of this dialogue today. It is a very important dialogue indeed, and I look forward to contributing our perspective on how infrastructure innovation can accelerate the promise of a truly integrated digital African economy. So thank you so much.
And Johnson, maybe I would have to stick with you at this point and for you to give us a picture of the digital infrastructure that we have on the continent, per where you sit, and being a practitioner, operating one for that matter. Give us a sense of where we are.
Indeed. We have 1.5 billion, almost, people in Africa, a fairly big expanse of geography. And we contribute about less than 2% of data center capacity to the global digital platform. And that is not acceptable. And then to worsen it, 50 to 60% of that is concentrated around Johannesburg and Cape Town, and the rest, Nigeria, Kenya, Morocco, Ghana, and a few other countries. Although it is growing, it is still quite anemic. And on top of that, cloud, especially public cloud, is everywhere, and it's enabling digital economies. We only have one cloud region in Africa, and that's down in South Africa. And even at that, it's not expansive. And if you think about it, most commerce today globally is powered in the cloud, whether it's public or private cloud. Now, the second bit is, as we know, internet disrupted a lot of economies and a lot of, operations positively, and has ushered in this new digital economy. AI is upon us, and AI-enabled infrastructure, AI-enabled systems, AI-enabled platforms is beginning to power new ways of doing business, new ways of delivering services by governments, and new ways of thinking of the future, from education to healthcare to agriculture. And in Africa, we have far less than 8%, fractions of that, access to the prerequisites called GPUs to be able to allow our developers, our enterprises. I listened in a bit on the last session, and I marveled at the ingenuity, the creativity, the energy in the new entities coming up, on the new commerce and the new ways of doing things, payments, transactions, settlements, right? All of these will be underpinned by AI, and yet our developers do not have sovereign AI access to do big models, to do small models, even to write applications, which they call inference, right? And that's where we come in. And it's not just CASI, it's the collective data centers. We need to build for the future, we need to build for now. And at the end of the day, building, sovereign infrastructure for Africa, in Africa, by localizing capacity, and preferably hyperscale capacity, is really the task for all of us that are operators and practitioners to be able to enable the AfCFTA's digital trade ambitions. Okay. We have to be there, and we have to be focused on it. And all the attributes of cross-border e-commerce and the various services, we are essentially the backbone, if you think about it. The digital backbone to enable it, along with the fiber operators, with all the network, the satellite operators as well. We form the backbone to deliver these capabilities and this platform for this purpose. So, and in doing so, I want to highlight, we must be inclusive. If you look at what we do, right? We are developing hyperscale data centers in major metros, and but we're also collaborating with other data center operators like Tunde's data center, OADC, that are also developing and deploying at the edges. Collectively, we should be able to reach all population centers, large and small, working with the network operators. So I hope this is a beginning salvo for this session.
Yeah, and I'm happy you started talking about the fact that
You are a backbone to a lot of the, particularly the corridors and the activities when it comes to trade on the corridors. Now, in terms of public sector operations and the extent to which data infrastructure is supporting, we are happy to have the public sector. And of course, we also have the EAC, which is considered to be the most advanced when it comes to data infrastructure or data trade represented, and we'll hear from that perspective. But starting with Zambia, because I know that you have about 2 data centers in Zambia, and I'm told that you have one coming up. But looking at where data trade, digital trade is heading, what is the state of Zambia's data infrastructure, and to what extent are you improving to catch up? Mr. Kalemba.
Thank you. Of course, you are right by saying that our state of maybe data infrastructure that we have in terms of data centers, I know for the public sector we have 2 data centers. Then we also have the private sector who also have data centers that where the companies can go and host their systems. From where we are, we know that in the digital space or digital ecosystem, Zambia is growing massively. A lot of data, rather digital transformation is taking place. You heard from mobile money operators, the government is expanding its systems, it's expanding its network infrastructure to all the far-flying areas of the country. So we need really a very stable and robust data center infrastructure. And therefore, we are also growing together with the demand. So the demand is so high, and the government is not sitting back but planning to upgrade and build more data centers that can answer to what we are churning out in terms of data and the data transformation agenda that we have. Currently, we do have a project called DZAP. It's a Digital Zambia Acceleration Project, where we are looking at all components of data transformation, and it's also looking at data center expansion, the network expansion, the solutions development, and also digital literacy. So in terms of data center expansion, we are not satisfied with what we have. We are going to build more data centers. Thank you.
Yeah, still staying with you. And yesterday I heard something very interesting. I know that Zambia is a landlocked country, but I think I heard from your president that it's a land-leaked country. Interesting. To what extent have you benefited, or what's the importance of the data centers that you have? And the significance of it, to what extent?
Thank you. Yes, we are land-linked. We used to think in the past that we are landlocked, but we took a positive from there and called ourselves land-linked. It means that the backbone of the infrastructure, the networks, we can connect from, I know we've got connection of our internet connectivity through different countries that are surrounding us. Yeah. That's one of the advantages or the positives. Again, we work with these regional or neighboring countries that we are close with in terms of data transmission and trade information. We can equally or easily share because we work together in a lot of forums and collaborations. So I think we can learn or maybe get positives from our neighboring countries through these countries that we are land linked with.
Okay. Let's take lessons from Nigeria as well. Ayobami, if you can highlight for us the state of digital infrastructure in Nigeria.
Okay, so in terms of where Nigeria is, well, we start with the fact that we have about 100 million active internet users, so which is, as far as I'm aware, considered the largest in Africa. And I think our fintech industry has obviously also grown quite a great deal and is doing a lot of things. And we have also found that e-commerce is growing very, very fast. And what we have had to do at NIMSI is to basically ensure that digital identity becomes an enabler to that. Because what you find a lot of the time in African countries is that the private sector is, goes full speed ahead, and then sometimes, the public sector moves a little bit more like an ocean liner. It takes us a little while to, catch up. But where we are able to do that, and where we're able to create an enabling environment for them to thrive, is really where we need to be. So, for instance, what we've been able to do with the NIN, where we have about, like I said, 118 million, which is about half the population, is that we have been able to integrate with other bodies. So, for instance, with the Central Bank of Nigeria, and via them, the banks, and also the National Interbank Settlement System, the national identity number is integrated with them, which means that for a bank account opening, you are able to very easily verify your identity, for one, and then also you're able to link all of your accounts via your NIN. And we have also been able to work with the National Communications Commission, which is the regulatory body that regulates the mobile network operators. So again, the NIN is used to quickly and easily verify your identity so that you can get SIM cards and you can access, phone data, and also with our Federal Inland Revenue Service, so that again, the national identity number, the NIN, is linked to your tax identity number. So with these sorts of integrations that we have done, we have been able to help to make financial transactions and digital financial transactions, and as well as obviously the more old school. We've been able to make them easier. So, and also we have been able to leverage the NIN in other ways that are, we think, quite transformative in how we're approaching things in Nigeria. So, for instance, the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Association of Nigeria, SMEDEN, we are working with them to get to, because I think like most of Africa, most of the companies and businesses are small to medium enterprises. So we have linked with them so that they are able to make sure that their members have NINs, and they're therefore able to access financial services much more easily. It's improving their financial inclusion, because some of these small businesses are, sole trader, etc., and often they are not aware of what is available to them. So with what SMEDEN is doing with the largest space, and then also linking that to NIN enrollment, we are able to make sure that they can access some of these financial services. So that's for finances, and then for movement of people, for instance, we have worked with the National Immigration Service to link the NIN with passports, which has helped a great deal with helping to make it much easier to apply for your passport, which then helps with obviously movement of people. And in the area of movement of goods, we are, this is very much in the early stages, but we are working with the customs service in Nigeria so that in the future we will be able to use the NIN to be able to verify your identity for the customs documentation, so that, I mean, we know that the whole point of the African continental free trade area is to be able to ease trade and remove tariffs, but you also need to be able to actually remove the bottlenecks as much as possible. So when we are able to link completely with customs, that would really assist with customs documentation and the movement of goods. So these are the sort of things. I mean, there are other ones, so I don't necessarily want to take up too much of your time, because we are basically we are as much as possible understanding the use cases we have to leverage the NIN, so that it is a source of truth, that it is a foundational identity. But foundational identity is it's a tool, so you have to be able to allow people to use it to make their lives easier and improve access to services. So where possible, we are doing that, and so even in access to, say, government intervention services, we're doing a lot of work with those, the social registers that we have. We're linking the people on the social registers and making sure that they have NINs, and then that way they can open accounts. And so you have, instead of cash transfers, they're able to open, say, a mobile money account or a traditional account. And that way, you put them on the first steps towards financial inclusion. And then, they can then access, trade and other things. So this is some of the work that we're doing that we're pretty proud of, and we think that it's really making a difference in using identity as something that's really being a driver in people's day-to-day lives.
Sorry, they want you to raise your voice a bit for the purposes of this.
Sorry. Is that better? Is that better?
Yes,
okay,
or probably get it closer. Yeah.
Okay. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Okay, but you are the continent's biggest market. Yes. There's a lot of trading happening in Nigeria, yes. And when you sneeze, a lot of us catch cold. Sure. I would love to know the challenges, within Nigeria that you have identified in terms of having the data centers, in terms of having the digital identities. And also, I would love for you to share with us how your procedures, and you mentioned the customs procedures. I know that about 2013, thereabout, you moved to the ASICUDA. You upgraded your ASICUDA. That's automated customs systems.
Yes, yes.
To what extent does that improve in trade, for instance, within and clearance processes and all of that? One of the things I have noticed in Nigeria, and I'm sure a lot of people who have been in Nigeria, mobile money or digital payment for basic transactions. Mm-hmm. You sit in a taxi, and almost everybody is paying with a card. This is rare in some West African countries, mm-hmm. but it's so open and it's so growing very fast in Nigeria. Yes. So when we take a look at your economy, the size of your population, mm-hmm. how are you meeting up? How are you catching up with the speed?
Right. Okay. So that's actually a pretty good question, because what the size of the population requires you to, and also the diversity and the size of the area that you have to cover requires you to, adapt. So the means by which NIMC was able to reach, well, maybe not all 118, close to 100 million NINS was via a sort of a center-based approach, where people would come to, we created centers and worked with companies. So NIMSI itself as an organization has enrollment centers where you can go and get your NIN in every local government in Nigeria. We're present in all the local governments in Nigeria. But we also work with what we call front-end enrollment partners. So these are companies. So they enroll people and they are paid to do this. But what we previously found was that what you then have when you have a center-based approach is that with the front-end enrollment partners, they would focus on the areas where you have a lot of population density. So that's where they would put their centers, which makes sense. It's a commercial proposition. Also, even NIMSI, we are in all the local governments, but there are 774 local governments in Nigeria, which is a lot.
Quite a lot.
But you're talking about over 200 million people. So some of these local governments still serve a great number of people. And the ones that are, so what you would then see is that a local government center where the NIMSI office would be is a much more sort of urbanized.
Okay.
But then, the further, the more remote, more rural areas of that same local government, in some cases are hours away from the center. Making, if somebody wanted to get an in, it makes it quite difficult for them. And you don't want that. You don't want to create barriers to people having this tool that will really improve their lives, which is why we've moved from a center-based approach so that we are now moving towards a mobile approach. One, we're going from the 774 local governments, we are moving down so that NIMSI has a presence in all the wards in Nigeria. There are 8,809 wards in Nigeria.
I see.
So that obviously then deals with a much smaller concentration of people. And then we won't have the center-based approach where the enrollment agent sits in an office and waits for people to come to them. We will, the enrollment will be mobile. So you will go into communities and then, register people, and then that way, immediately they can have access to your mobile money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing that, and also we are working, I think I mentioned it in passing earlier, but we're working with some of the government agencies that do interventions, that have government interventions, and again, using this mobile approach. So for instance, there's something called the National Social Register that has 64 million people on it. What we have done, we have partnered with the agency that handles this, the National Safety Nets Coordination Office. And when they created this social register, they sent field agents into communities and identified the more vulnerable people in those communities. So what we have done is we've said, okay, we will go back to those communities with those same field agents who have already created relationships with those communities. And then we will register these people with NINs so that in the future, when it's time to distribute interventions to them, we will be able to do it much, much more easily, and you'll be able to track things and it'll be far more transparent. So that's the sort of thing we're doing now. And also a similar project with the Ministry of Agriculture, where they are taking their farmer data, where they have some data of the farmers in the rural, who are obviously mostly based in rural areas, and the sort of crops that they grow, and the sort of interventions that they might need. Different types of fertilizer, different types of seeds, who's who deals with livestock or growing crops. So we want to basically, again, partner with them and go into the farm communities and ensure that all these farmers have NINs.
Yeah.
So that, again, you can track the government interventions that are happening. So that, and then you can eliminate a lot of the waste that ends up taking place.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So these are the ways that you can basically leverage using identity to give people financial inclusion, and then you put them on the first rung towards. So a farmer, for instance, it becomes easier for him. Once he has a NIN, somebody can pay. He'll open an account, and then payments become much more straightforward as he's selling his goods, etc. So these are the things that we are doing, and we are leveraging the improvements in technology, because NIMC has been around since about 2007, and what we were able to do with identity back then is nothing in comparison to what we can do now. Even if you look at the devices that you had 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't consider a mobile based enrollment. The devices were huge and required, UPS, generator, et cetera. But now we are able to basically take these devices, and even in areas where the internet service isn't particularly wonderful, you are able to basically enroll these people offline. So you have that capability as well. So you're not limited the way that used to be a few years ago. So these are the people that most need the NIN. So the fact that we are now able to leverage these things and go to them and make sure that they have them is critical.
All right. Whilst we hoping to take some lessons and practical experiences that's going on in EAC, let me, and since Nigeria has just spoken, let me just take a quick advantage to announce this one, and that's the fact that Nigeria is holding a cocktail at Banquet Hall 1. They do it big all the time, so they don't want you to miss this particular one. The Banquet Hall 1, they are telling me that there's a cocktail right after the last session. All of us have to be there, please. Thank you, Nigeria. But EAC, let me find out from you, Engineer Morenze, with all the successes that we are seeing coming from the East African community, and we are told that Kenya is doing quite a lot. Other Eastern African countries are doing quite a lot. What lessons can you share with us? And listening into both Zambia and Nigeria, what lessons can you share with us?
Yeah, thank you so much, our moderator. And indeed, it was good to hear from Nigeria and Zambia, and also what comes here is from the East African community. And my perspective will be now giving the clear image on, especially on the digital ID side and also on the data center, as you have said. When you look at the rate at which East African community is transacting in the data, especially on the trade, emanates from its mandate of the pillars of integration. So one, we were mandated to now implement what we call the customs union. And that customs union made us to now transact together under all revenue authorities of all our 8 countries, and also make sure that there is movement of goods and also those tariffs are put together. So that is one of the data that would flow across by implementing using one harmonized customs act. So when you already have one harmonized customs act, it now creates a demand on countries like Kenya, as you have clearly said, and others within even the region like Tanzania and also Uganda, Rwanda, and all, because there is now a demand to now aggregate the services and trade across the region. So another pillar that also gave us to now have a lot of the data flow, and the data is crossing across our partner state. When you look at our common market protocol allows the free movement of people, free movement of goods, free movement of services, and free movement of capital. And all that is anchored onto identification.
Yeah.
Good example, I just wanted to give an example. As you know, when we implemented the movement of the people within our ESC, before even we introduced the East African passport, we had already started using the IDs for those countries that had already implemented the national IDs. The trade itself, the cross-border trade for both informal and formal, raised almost around 30%. So meaning that the identification ID plays a transformative role for the cross-border trade, for the cross-border payment, and for the movement of the people. So this is what has happened, as you have seen what's going on within our region. Today, someone from Kenya crosses to Uganda, then continues to Rwanda, and with his data across. What does that mean? That means that the ID, he or she doesn't need a passport to cross across and make the trade. So it has raised the trade within our region, and hence creating now the demand to create now the data centers. I will be talking both on this as an example, because there is no, sometimes we usually say data centers should be like DPGs, the digital public good. Because when you look at even the innovation that is behind, you really need something reliable, scalable, and also secure to keep your data. So when you look at the Kenyas, like the Johnson talked at the first time, it's one of the regions where we are having one of the big data centers around. And as a region, because of the free movement of data, goods, and services, most of even the regional countries have decided to be hosting their data there. And what has led to that is because of the harmonization of the data governance, which is also anchored on the continental one. I appreciate the African Union and also the Continental Free Trade area, where we are now focusing on how do we harmonize this. But when the continent came up with the data governance framework at the continental level, it also created a demand at the national level to become innovative, because at the end of the day, when you look at in the e-commerce platforms, Jumia, around within our ESC, it's all you are identified as who is the trader on the platform using your ID, and also your data has to be hosted somewhere. So that's where now the demand for the regional protocol made the region also to trade a lot within the data flow. Also, other things that we saw coming up within our region is that the secure data sharing here has enabled the exchange of the identity and identified information between the trusted parties. One of the good examples I would give you, because we have also gone further to implement the national data protection authorities, because creating that trust has made the cross-border data flow and now has led to the innovation. Most people were saying, why is the region becoming more innovative in mobile money as we move? As you are aware, as you heard from Nigeria also, with even the ITU standards, any registration of a SIM card now is based on the ID, your national ID or the passport. But interestingly, I followed the first presentation. Interestingly, the mobile money that we are all talking about in the whole world, we can say it was born in Kenya. And being born in the East Africa and Kenya here, it has created now the all digital services to be anchored onto the payment, on the mobile money. And the mobile money is now anchored onto the digital, the ID. So meaning that now that trust that the authorities have created, like the telecommunication authority, financial sector, and also the health sector even, and the trade environment, has now led today a lot of the generation of the cross-border data, and also generating the trust that we can now come up with a lot of the innovations that now lead us to the data. Let me give a good example on the data center that we are talking about here. What we didn't need, again, because we cannot talk about the digital ID and all this without talking about the critical backbone, which is the the digital infrastructure. Today, we have seen Kenya has gone into a good PPP arrangement on the Green Data Center, which is going to be one of the huge data center within our region, which we are now, as a region, we are focusing to now create policy and the legal framework that allows data embassy. You know very well, we know Estonia very well as the leading into the digital ID and other e-government services, but they don't own many data centers, neither do they have a lot, even to a bigger standard. But because of the policy of the data embassy, all their data centers are across and they are keeping their data, is it in Rosenberg and all. So as a region also, we are harmonizing our regional data protection law and the cross-border data flow mechanism. We have reached at a bigger certain level, developing the principles. Soon it will go to the members of parliament. Our beauty as the East African community, the regional law supersedes the national law. So now it creates the enabling environment. So we want to capitalize, because investment in the digital infrastructure is so huge, and the country demands are also huge. There is a lot you need to invest in the health sector, in other infrastructure, in education sector and all. But when we come together as the region and focus that or even as a continent, we allow this data embassies, whereby the free movement of data and under the trust. So I believe we are going to be the first within the African continent as the East African community, and I believe that the whole Africa would benchmark on us, what we are really doing to now bring the data embassy and able to now allow one law to operate within our region, that once the data is hosted in Kenya, it's my data. And I'm already in Uganda or in Rwanda, there is the trust across. Because we have looked at adequacy, we have looked at who is the data processor, who is the data controller, and there is one law that guides us. So that's the harmonization that we are working on. Because without harmonized legal frameworks, we will not achieve the digital environment we need. Because there is also a fear, and I don't know if people at your national level have started tackling on the capacity building. Our policy makers require us to be oriented onto how do we deal with the digital infrastructures and how do we deal with the digital IDs and this. In general, when we talk about the DPIs, because you will find that if a policy maker, a member of parliament, a minister in another sector doesn't know that there are some safeguards that we can put to invest this into the infrastructure and allow those with the capacity to do so, and for us we diversify and do other investment and do so. So what I want to advocate for here, which we are taking as a region, not every country in East African community should have their data center hosted, because there are other competing demands. They should only have the regulatory frameworks that allows to protect their data wherever they are. Because we are now free movement of data. I mean free movement of people. This is what we are all advocating for the continent. At least in East Africa, we are. And no visa, no what, there is free settlement. So in that context, when we now enable that, it also secures us the secure data sharing. We have piloted this and we are seeing it happening. Because of the ID now, because we trust our IDs and they are developed on a standard. For your information, we passed what we call immigration policy. By the way, you cannot do the digital ID with putting aside migration sometimes when it comes to cross-border. So what we have done as the ESC under the immigration policy, a good example I want to give myself, if I have my account in KCB in Tanzania, I go in Kenya, I withdraw. They trust my identification that was captured under KCB in Tanzania. And I go in South Sudan, I do the same transaction. I go in Rwanda, I do. The Uganda, the same. So that trust, if now we would say, oh, you have to host that data in one country, cross-border, you require this and this, without just looking at the regulatory framework, we would be making data cost for us. So I just want to end here by showing you that within the region, we have decided to bring the policy in middle to be an engine for us to enable us to achieve the digital public infrastructure we are developing, and also the digital services, especially under our DPI, because we have also the East African Digital Transformation Strategy that shows us the DPI. So that's where the countries benefit and now bring the digital innovation, data center, and digital idea across. Thank you so much, our moderator.
Sure. Before I bring Director Macon from the AfCFTA perspective, I will still take just 2 minutes from you, Engineer Murenze, because a bit of the trust is key. Now, one of the things I have seen at the time I was handling external affairs and media relations for Ghana's Ports and Harbours Authority is the difficulty in getting the other countries to buy in. Now, one of our difficulties was to get Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger integrate their custom systems with Ghana. Ghana used to have Asikuda somewhere around 1991 all the way to 2002 thereabout, and we moved away from that. But that is what Burkina Faso is still using. We are now using ICUMS, the Integrated Customs Management Systems, far different from what is being done in Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali. And these are landlocked countries, but we need to sort of harmonize the data, the clearance and all of that, the transit trade and all of that. None of that is there. And there's still difficulty for customs to get these 4 countries, for instance, to integrate their custom systems. How did you do the trust bit? And how did it work, briefly?
Yeah, thank you so much. Indeed, as I said, the beauty behind East African community, we have the functioning bodies. We have, as I told you, under the Customs Act or the Customs Union, we developed the legal framework that allows the EAC to now operate under one customs union. So what we have under customs union, all national laws were harmonized to now come up with the regional law. So the regional law allows us now to transact between each other. It's just unfortunate that I don't have time. I would have shared with your screen to show you at least what the region has done by itself. Maybe if you see, you have said that, and I love to say, allow me to just show you. That is Kenya Revenue Authority having the ICMS. Tanzania has TANSIS. Uganda has ASCUDA. Rwanda has ASCUDA. South Sudan has what they call iTax. Burundi has ASCUDA, and they are all on DRC. So we have even integrated them together because of the law and the harmonization. This is the operationalization of the EAC customs systems, and they are all because we worked on harmonization. So what failed our brothers from the other side was because there is no harmonization done. And on the top of that, as a region, we do have like 2 times the customs people meet, agree together what are the challenges, what should we bring forward, and then the customs committee takes it to the commissioner generals, to the ministers of finance, and to the EAC council of ministers. So we now harmonize. Even in under other sectors, because the regional law, according to our treaty, supersedes the national law. So that's where now harmonization becomes easier for us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good lessons coming from the EAC and very important for that matter. But Director Macon, the AfCFTA protocol on digital trade, how is it addressing this gap?
Do I have an hour to answer your question? No, thank you very much, moderator. We have a very unique legal instrument, and I'm glad that the speakers who went before me touched on everything that this particular legal instrument basically covers. Now, the first thing that I want to speak to is the data centers. We have now a business case that has been made, not by ourselves as a secretariat, but by our heads of states. They have adopted this legal instrument, and by so doing, that is a call to investors to say the continent has created a conducive legal environment for investors to come in and fill in that gap, the 700 data centers we need gap, because the legal infrastructure has been put in place. That's the first point that I would like to make. The second point that I would like to make is that it is not at all only about digital identities. Yes, we have a specific set of rules under the protocol on digital identities, but digital identities related rules and laws alone cannot make trade move in the continent. It is for this reason that the protocol has other several rules that complement and in fact that interwork with the rules we have on digital identities. I'll mention two of those, and these have already been discussed in this event. One, there is rules on cross-border data transfer. And in fact, unlike elsewhere in the world where the clock is moving backwards, what our members have committed to is to say there will not be barriers to cross-border data transfer, meaning data can freely move across the continent. And that's a very important milestone that we've been able to achieve in the continent. And again, that's a call to the investors to say, bring in your capital, be rest assured that you will stretch that dollar, it will multiply 1,000 million-fold because nobody is going to stop you from moving data across borders. So that's a very important issue. The second issue I would like to reflect on is that the same digital trade protocol, it does provide for rules that allow, and our members have committed to allowing cross-border payments. We just had a panel on payments earlier on today, and now we have rules that are saying, and our members have committed to that we will allow cross-border payments. And I think it is this dimension then that brings us to digital identities. Today in the continent, over 500 million people do not have a form of legal identification. Over 500 million people. Remember, we've been talking about the continent having as many as 1.4 billion people. Now, if we talk about trade across borders, and if I may take a question and ask anybody here to say, how many of us have bought goods on Amazon, online, eBay? You mentioned all these big platforms that are not domiciled per se in the continent. And I think you'd find that it's much easier for you to place an order and buy a product from the UK using eBay or Amazon than it is for you to do the same thing using maybe a platform domiciled somewhere in Ghana. And the question is, why is it that it is so easy for us to be able to transact and spend money, convert the CD into the dollar in order for you to get a product that you're purchasing through AliExpress and Amazon into the continent? Why can't you do the same when we have platforms in Nigeria, we have platforms in Kenya, we have platforms take a lot in South Africa? Why is it that we don't have that cross-border transactions yet? These transactions are taking place and goods are moving from North America all the way down to Ghana. Digital identities. It is a huge challenge. And again, this particular protocol sets in place and sets in motion the basis on which our businesses will be able to transact. Now, some of the key elements that you'll find within this particular rules on digital identities, and I'll mention quite a few. One is that there must be interoperability of systems. That means what my sister was saying concerning the advancement that you've made in digital identities. How can we have your system interoperate and be interoperable with the system in EAC? And therefore, the businesses can begin to transact across the continent. And we need to create that node. And the protocol on digital trade, and in particular, the annex on digital identities, it allows for that to happen. And our members have agreed. Our heads of states, President Tinubu, has said, yes, we're going to do it. His Excellency, President of the Republic of Zambia, has said, yes, we agree, this is something that we need to do through this particular digital identities rules that are encapsulated in the protocol on digital trade. And that's a very important issue. And therefore, these systems, we should work towards making sure that they are interoperable. A very important issue. There are other various elements that you'll find in this particular protocol, and in particular, the annex on digital identity. We should be operating on the basis of similar standards. So the issue of standards, the issue concerning regulations, they also come on board. And again, our political masters have said, we agree that we must make sure that we operate on the basis of similar standards. Now, you talked about the different custom systems. And again, this runs through the veins of what makes trade happen. And I see that a very good friend of mine, Mark, is here. Think about what we were discussing yesterday concerning the one-stop border post, or you call it a no-stop border post. But let's limit it to one-stop border post. You go to the border, and the idea is you do one transaction once, and you don't have to replicate the same transaction on the other side of the border. But the reality in the continent is, yes, infrastructure has been set out. We do have multi-million-dollar infrastructure being set out. But guess what? You still have to do the same transaction twice. If you want to clear your vehicle, you still have to present your registration card on one side of the border and do the same thing on the other side of the border. So is your passport. So is your other forms of identity. And yet, this particular instrument is saying, you must only do that once. In fact, if we had a no-stop border post, you will not even do it because you would have done it remotely. So the legal infrastructure is here, and it is now all for us to begin to make it work. And here that means my sister here has to make it work. She has to talk to our colleagues in Ghana. She has to talk to our colleagues in Zambia and say, how can we ensure that our technical standards, how can we ensure that our systems themselves, because there are softwares that are embedded in these systems. I'm told, for those of us, and I am not, I'm just a lawyer, I'm told there's something called the source code. And I'm told for the systems to work together, somebody has to unlock that source code in order for the interoperability to happen. Now, that's now the next step that the both of them, have to help us to actually unlock. And I think this is precisely what this particular protocol is providing for us to do. And I would like to mention one last thing so that I don't take too much of your time. And I'm glad that my colleague from the EAC has outlined how far the EAC has gone. And in sitting down and thinking about what can we do at the continental level, we said we are not going to start from scratch. In fact, the AfCFTA agreement enjoins us to start from where advancements have been made at the regional level, and it provides that the regional economic communities are the building blocks of the AfCFTA. And what we did was to look at the EAC legal framework. We went to ECOWAS, looked at the ECOWAS legal framework, COMESA, and all the regional economic communities we have, and we said, let's build on what already exists in these particular regional economic communities. So we now have a legal instrument, therefore, that is taking everything that we have in the continent, the floor, the minimum standard, and we built on that to begin to have what today is I would say that we do not have, as the Secretary General said, we do not have any legal instrument of this nature. And therefore, this is the point that I want to make. Our members have agreed that we have to have, and this particular legal instrument creates AfCFTA digital identity. Meaning today as we sit, we are poised to have a continental digital identity. You can transact and present your digital identity from Cape to Cairo because of what has been created by this particular legal instrument. It works in two ways. It creates a continental digital identity system for natural persons, flesh and blood like myself and you, but also, and most importantly, it creates a continental digital identity for businesses. Now, that's a game changer because it says it is possible for businesses to transact and be recognized irrespective of a country from which they are transacting. And we know that a lot of what obtains in digital trade, it is B2B.
Yeah.
it is not only about B2C, businesses to consumer type transactions. The bulk of the business, it is actually in B2B. I believe that for anybody amongst us who looks for, if you're using Alibaba, you have AliExpress, you have Alibaba. Yeah. Guess where the money is made the most? Where there is B2B. And therefore, again, this is something that our members have agreed to say, yes, natural persons, we need to have free movement of persons. Well and good, but also let's remember, it is about the businesses as well. So maybe I should stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great. At this point, and maybe as Mr. Johnson prepared to take us through what you have also gone through with CASI, or CASI Cloud Data Center, sharing that experience with us. If we have questions, audience, we can get them ready so that we ask, I think, about 3 questions maximum, and then we can move to the next session. Yes? But Mr. Johnson, from CASI, Cloud Data Centers, and having listened to our public institutions and what's happening at the regional level, particularly at EAC, and the challenges, whether ECOWAS or whether SADC, what advice would you give?
I think the framework has already been laid out, and what we then have to do is to partner up, not just with the data center operators. We specialize in building these facilities and making them world-class. We also go above and beyond, not just to compete with each other, but to partner up with each other to extend our reach. We do that as data center operators. We also do that with other infrastructure, digital infrastructure operators. Mobile operators co-locate with us. Fiber operators co-locate with us. Satellite operators co-locate with us. We go further, and I said this at the opening, to make sure that we partner up. At CASI, we partner up to extend our reach, not just in the big metros where we focus on the big cloud infrastructure, the multinational enterprises, but to go to location centers. And we also partner up to go beyond Nigeria, for example, to address the broader West Africa, to get started, because commerce happens all across West Africa, right? So being able to work with us to make sure that these platforms are deployed and accessible, not just to consumers, but to businesses, to other institutions that have been tasked, to be clearing houses, right? To make sure that all the interfaces, be them programmable or not, be super secure, so that there's trust, right? Make sure that we also do not leave out the human capital as we apply financial capital to this problem, that we begin to grow the human capital. Because indigenous programmers, indigenous infrastructure operators, indigenous, technologists are required not just to build, but to operate and keep these things up all the time, so that the end user experience, is very good. If you're in e-commerce and you spend too much time waiting for that transaction to clear, and it times out, and it times out, and it times out, and you're in a different geography, buying from a different geography, you become frustrated. So we don't accelerate that commerce. So we think of these systems to make sure they are secure, but simplified, right? And then they are resident where they are needed. So being able to open the digital borders, being able to make the protocols programmable, simpler to implement, the platforms being able to be distributed, that is imperative. And I listened to all the participants. I think we're just beginning. We are building the tools. We are building the facilities. we will encourage our partners internationally to come join us. And the last speaker said it very well. Africa is opening up for business, and this is just the beginning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. So, do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, I have a hand. I have 3 hands. Shall we have the microphones there, please?
Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Hatembo. And my question is on the data centers that we have currently. Looking at them, let's say we have a platform and we grow that platform. Let's say we have 2 million users in a short period of time. The data centers that we have, are they able to handle those customers, all that data that we have on that platform? Can those data centers be able to hold all that data without having downtimes, without having time out, like Mr. Johnson mentioned? Say if you're trying to make a payment that keeps loading, are those data centers able to handle those type of numbers at the moment, not just now, but going forward as well? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take another one from here. Can we have the microphone to that side, please? Yes, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Me coming back here feels like I've got a lot to say. Well, my name is Lesa, like Elia mentioned. I run an organization called Youth Africa Unite, where we prepare young leaders for the world's inevitable problems. Now, bouncing back to the boundaries of conversation, my question goes to the panelists. And this is, well, for a very long time we've seen, and forgive me to say this, but Africa has turned into a museum of policies where we hear policy this, policy that, but there's no actual groundwork, effective conversations being done to narrate to production. My question is, how then data centers using this data that they actually collect to actually transcend to the grassroots, the young youth out there that might not actually have information on trade? How are these data centers actually transcending to the grassroots with the problems that we actually have? Now, we've noticed that there is this big solution that's looking for trivial and small problems. Why then can't we build up from the grassroots with the small problems to look for that solution? I remain Lesa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next, please. Director Makon, would you take that one before we wait for the next one? I'll let you start on that and then the other one. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a very passionate question, a lot of passion behind it, and that's well and good. I would tell you that part of what we are doing now, I think we have a new generation. We are definitely not building museums here. And the Secretariat, through the engagement of the champion on digital trade, we are in a process where we are documenting the use cases. And those use cases are targeting women and youth, small and medium enterprises. Why is that the case? Because we know over 98% of any African economy, in terms of the market players, these are small and medium enterprises. We are talking about border communities. The other day, in fact yesterday, we had the managing director of Better Than Cash Alliance, and we've been doing some work with them where we've been documenting these use cases at the border. So we go to the border, we try to find what are the problems when it comes, for example, to payments. Why is it that it's difficult for you to transact and make a payment from one side of the border to the other when it comes to the border communities? So there is work that is being done in this particular space. And why is that so? Because we are anchoring it on these particular provisions of the protocol on digital trade. If you allow me, moderator, let me also invite our young people, our software developers, people who are in the tech space. And I think the word trust has been used a lot. There's a business opportunity right here. The same way the European Union has made a multi-billion-dollar industry out of trust services, this particular protocol, it is also giving you that opportunity to actually scale up. be the ones who are providing the authentication services for these digital IDs that we're talking about. So there's a huge opportunities that are coming your way. So again, that means it is not only us putting up policies, our members putting up policies. These are policies that you can seize as soon as you get yourself ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just taking the last two and then we can. Yes, that one.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So my question is in regards to us realizing the goal for inter-Africa trade within the continent. We're going to use and utilize various digital technologies like AI as previously discussed, and the data centers are integral into achieving this. They provide the infrastructure. So AI and blockchain technology, for payments, will facilitate trade, and as we scale up and the demand grows and more transactions happen across the continent, what this translates to is power consumption. In our context in Zambia, we recently experienced the drought last season. And so this infrastructure that we scale up and build in the future, the power implication for the continent, to the policymakers and also the people running the data centers, what deliberate measures are we making, whether it's in research and development, to mitigate some of the impacts that these data centers are going to have on the continent.
Okay. Thank you. And then the lady, and that should be it.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Hangula from Namibia. I wanted to ask, this whole session today was about the digital identities, but what I was getting was a context from a human perspective. What about the digital identities that already exist for the products, which is basically the barcode? The barcode is an international standard which tells you, the very first digit tells you country of origin. And we, as gathered from the discussions, we are struggling to figure out rules of origin when the barcode could already do that. And there's 17, actually now 18 different African offices within the continent that provide the barcodes. When are we going to include these offices? By the way, I'm from one of these offices, the Barcode Center of Namibia.
All right. Can we have our panelists address that? Anybody wants to take that first? And then the other two, please. Dr. Makon, maybe.
No, thanks a lot. Let me start with the last question.
The standard.
The barcode and the existing digital identities. These are very exciting questions, and I think you can see that I'm smiling. I'm smiling because the so-called, the lawyers, they call it an annex, but basically it's rules that we have under this AfCFTA protocol on digital trade. They actually say, the protocol basically says we are going to take all of that into an ecosystem so that there's a continent-wide recognition. So that means as soon as the Republic of Namibia ratifies these particular rules, domesticate the rules, whoever else in the continent that has done the same, then there will be a recognition of that particular form of identity. So that's simply to say that this is actually a problem that has been solved. I do not know whether I should speak to the issue of the AI and power consumption, but I guess maybe my fellow panelists who are very competent when it comes to the data centers can speak to that. Only one thing that I'll say to you, I think it's a question of looking at the glass as half full, as opposed to looking at it as half empty. Why so? We have a legal instrument that basically calls on investors to come and invest in energy in the continent. We have abundance of solar energy across the Sahara Desert. We have abundance of water, the Grand Inga Dam, that can power the rest of the continent. So the resources are there. We have now added another layer in a form of these legal rules that then can give investors confidence to say, if I am going to take my billions worth of dollars, I know that I'm going to get my return on investment. Why? Because these rules are the insurance policy to my investment. So I see it as something that perhaps is much more positive than perhaps looking at it as half empty. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to respond to that? Yes.
Thank you. Maybe I can also add on the AI and blockchain technology, and in relation to power, we should realize that when you invest in digital transformation, it has to be a holistic approach. Any data center, in fact, for it to be certified a tier 3 data center or any tier you are going to talk about, it must be a data center that is going to allow continuity of business. So it must be a data center when there is no, this source of power is down, the other source of power should kick in so that there is no disruption of a business. And therefore, it's a call to our governments to invest a lot in energy so that this digital transformation we are talking about, we want to implement, can be actualized. An example, in Zambia, we have about 116 local authorities across the country. We have connected all those local authorities as we are talking today to the government-wide area network, as Smart Zambia. And we realize that there are some places where the power is so erratic. And a program has been drawn already, and the power backup systems have been bought so that we do not have a system which will work, and then at some hours it is not working. People may not trust these systems that we are trying to roll out. So in short, when trying to invest in this digital transformation, let's also address or invest in the energy that is going to power our data centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir Johnson, you want to talk to that, or that's fine? Or Engineer Morenzi, you want to talk to any of the questions asked?
Yeah, if I will start and then pass on to my colleague, Engineer Morenzi. I think we should think about power this way. Africa is blessed with abundance of the sources of energy. And we should think of it from an abundance standpoint, right? If you go to Kenya, you have geothermal potentials along the rift, right? You have solar in the Sahel, and in Nigeria and parts of West Africa with flare gas, right? And then you have hydro and nuclear down in South Africa. And so we have sources that we can tap into. Something funny is that with these cross-border policies across Africa, it begins to allow countries to have unique value proposition. And this extends to energy. And it's not just energy for data centers, but it's energy for us to live, for us to produce, be it agricultural, goods, and services. So energy can also be traded across borders. That is very important. We begin to develop these resources, but data centers and communications infrastructure being the true backbone of digital economies, and for Africa, it's really what will accelerate this. We should collectively look at policies to prioritize how we deal with them, how we make it possible to accelerate access to grow capacity. Now, the first person asked the question, what happens when we begin to scale? Can the infrastructure handle it? And funny enough, the answer is yes. Scaling is a lot easier. It sort of ratifies business cases. It allows the network and mobile operators to justify their expansion of capacity. It allows people like us to increase our investments and to make determinations where we place capital. It allows other institutions to grow human capital, right, to be able to begin to address these technologies. So scaling is a lot easier if we can see it coming, even if we cannot see it immediately coming. But if these policies are all aligned and thrown in partnership with the private sector, we can actually begin to build to it. So there are other factors, but Engineer Morenzi, let me throw this back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted also to add on what you have said on the two sides. From the someone who raised the question of especially AI and the blockchain, sometimes I think people need to understand that even environment itself should drive the demand. We made similar study within the East Africa and say, do we really need a data center that holds the AI research and all? Then we went back and realized which universities within East Africa are really teaching about AI on the curriculum, which our industries that have started with AI, that they are demanding the higher performance servers that really require these high performance data centers that we are talking about. So let's start from the foundation. Foundation should drive even the what kind of infrastructure we're going to have, rather than having a redundancy. Because today, if you measure the industries that you have, and that's why for us at the East African community, we said, okay, let us start with the AI Alliance. And now also bring the capacity building, and people now start to understand. Because in the private sector, they have been demanding about the data centers of the AI. But when you go to the industry, there is none that is really tangible. And then we said, let's first go back on the grassroots and harmonize. So the East African community, we have now established what we call the AI Alliance, starting from the academia side, so that the curriculum is harmonized first of all, and people understand what do you need for AI. Blockchain has always been there. It's just terminology that people need to talk about and what, but doesn't require all those high performance. Second, on the power side, on the region and the continent, as you clearly mentioned, we have a lot of redundancy and abundance of this. But how do we trade between each other? The cross-border flow of the energy. It has started because from the other industries to promote the SMEs and all, we found out that if Uganda has the abundance of the power, shares it with Rwanda, then if we could have a good example, like the Rusumo hydropower. It's shared between Burundi, Rwanda, and Tanzania. So we have come to realize that cross-border power sharing can enable any critical infrastructure we need. But what we need to start with is the capacity building, is our researchers and our education sector, and build the curriculum. Me, I have always, I talk to my brothers at the continent that where we are as Africa, we no longer have another alternative on the digital transformation. We must strive to be on the high table.
Okay.
But we now, being on the high table is by starting from the fundamentals on the academic side. Do you have the human resource to drive this? Do you have, we are building the AI centers for Microsoft, for the Google, for the other industries that are outside. So that is something that we need to start from. And I appreciate our brothers from the continent level who are already leading us in the harmonization. Thank you so much. And
thank you very much on that one, ESC, and I assume that you have ended your 30 seconds that I was going to give everybody. So Zambia, where are we taking this? What actions are we going back to take? Integrating our systems, where are we heading? Maybe in 30 seconds.
For me, I think like we have heard from our friends who are already ahead, especially the East African community, we need to promote interoperability of systems. also, alongside having documents or standards or guidelines or frameworks that should harmonize how we are going to share the data.
Okay.
Then let's also promote cybersecurity, because immediately we start rising in the digital transformation, cyber attacks will now focus on Africa, and we should be ready for us to prepare ourselves to defend and also to research in cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Macon, how is the AfCFTA being leveraged to ensure that we attract a lot more investment into our data centers, our data, digital trade, and all of that?
Yes, to leverage the AfCFTA, I think just one key actionable, which is to operationalize the AfCFTA digital identity. Maybe I should stop there.
Mr. Ayobami, what are we taking away to Nigeria?
Well, I think for the young man that asked the question about what a graveyard of policy, I mean, he's not entirely wrong in terms of the history of what we've seen in Africa. But what I'm taking away from today is that it is clear, just from what we have heard from this panel, that that doesn't have to be the future, and it really isn't. I mean, if we look at what Engineer Marinzi is talking about, what they have been able to do in the EAC, that is exactly what he is speaking to. They took the policies, and everybody was able to come together and figure out how to harmonize this. And what Dr. McCong was saying earlier is entirely correct. The first thing you need is for the heads of state to agree, and we have that. And that is a critical milestone that you can then build on. What we have been able to find in Nigeria is basically exactly what he said. Some of the things that I've talked about today, in fact, I think almost all of them, the use cases I've talked about today, were things that NIMSI has done since late 2023. And what we found was the first thing is getting the principals to agree. For instance, when I talked about the NIBS, the National Interbank Settlement System, and CBN and the banks, previously the banks had something called BVN, the Bank Verification Number, which is completely separate from the NIN. So you would register for a NIN, and then you would go register for a BVN. But we were able to get together and get in the room and be like, look, we're making people's lives difficult for no reason.
Okay.
Yes? So let's work this out.
All right.
We were able to do that with them, with the MNOs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and Engineer Marinzi has already said that they were able to do that across all these customs systems, et cetera. So we now have the buy-in of the heads of state. With that, we can take
leverage
sort of things. Exactly. There is no reason why we can't do that. Take the use cases across Africa and make it happen. I think we have the opportunity now.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for them. We are taking home to go and integrate our platforms to trade and interoperate as well, create awareness and preparedness. We should have proper and adequate data centers in order to be able to achieve what we are seeking to achieve on the continent. Mr. Frank Kalimba is the Director of Systems Development and Support, Smart Zambia. Also, Dr. Choti Makon is a Director, Coordination and Programs, AfCFTA Secretariat. Ms. Ayobami Abiola is a Technical Advisor to the Director General, National Identity Management Commission of Nigeria. Engineer Daniel Morenzi is a Principal Information Technology Officer, East Africa Community. And Mr. Johnson Agogbua is the CEO, Kasi Cloud Data Centers. Once again, a big round of applause for them, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Please, we have our next session, please. What do you have the group photograph taken before? No, we can just stand and have a group photograph taken, and then I will quickly invite
my next guest for the next session, critical as we talk about global partnership. All right. So, yeah, then do it quick. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for them once again because we need to move on to the next session. And let me quickly take us through the next session as our technical directors are helping us to fix the set for the next item. Our next plenary, which is plenary 8, is in conversation with Kendra Gaitha. She's fostering international partnership in support of the AfCFTA protocol on digital trade. And she's the president of the U.S. Africa Business Center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We're going to have about 30 minutes of discussions. Let's put our hands together and welcome her. I think we are set. So this discussion is focused on the role that international partners can play in supporting the implementation of the AfCFTA digital trade protocol. And there are several international partners that are helping to do this. Earlier in the day, we heard from Azerbaijan. There was invitation to come to Azerbaijan. How passionate Azerbaijan is willing to invest on the continent. We're going to take a listen to how the U.S. Chamber and the U.S. Business Center is also seeking to partner with the continent to do a lot of business. In December 2022, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce signed an MOU partnership with the AfCFTA Secretariat to support implementation of the AfCFTA. Now, it was at this MOU partnership of its kind between the Business Association and the Secretariat that launched a working group to help advance trade and investment between the U.S. and the Africa, as well as reaffirm commitment to elevate a strong private sector voice in Africa and to implement the AfCFTA. So, for the purposes of this discussion, I am pleased to be joined, as I've introduced her already, Ms. Kendra Gaitha, who is the president of the U.S. Africa Business Center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, a platform dedicated to advancing the U.S. private sector's commitment to this continent, Africa, through greater investment and support for trade between the African continent and the United States. Let's put our hands together for them again, please. Welcome, Kendra. So let me just quickly jump into the MOU that you signed earlier in 2022. What was it about? How is it seeking to connect businesses on the continent? And so far, what have you done with it?
Thank you. Ooh, can you hear me? Is this on? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Samuel, for the question. It's a pleasure to join you on stage. So our U.S. Africa Business Center, as you noted, is the Chamber's platform for increasing the trade and investment relationship between the nations of Africa and the United States. And so we're really dedicated to walking the talk. And our members, particularly our board, but also our network of American Chambers of Commerce, are really excited about the AfCFTA and the opportunity that it brings to the continent. But as we heard, and I'd love to align myself with a lot of the statements from the previous panel, particularly from Dr. Makong, who was looking at international investment from the standpoint of the Secretariat, we wanted to do our part to support implementation. And so we worked very closely with the AfCFTA leadership, Secretary General Wamkele Mene, and a variety of leaders, many of the thought leaders who are here in the room today, to design a joint working group. So rather than it be the voice of the chamber experts, or the voice of industry, it is a co-created mechanism where we looked at key priorities that the Secretariat had established for how to implement the AfCFTA, and how we as the business community could provide insights and support to that effort. And so this joint working group launched its formal meetings in early 2023. We've held a series of consultations to bring in the industry perspective. These have been virtual workshops. These have been engagements through our AmChem network. Notably, we have held workshops to educate business community across Africa and the United States on what the digital trade protocol looks like, and to seek feedback on some of the key issues that would be necessary, many of the things that you all have heard over the course of these days. I think the unspoken question is, why would the U.S. Chamber of Commerce want to be involved in such a thing? And again, I know our companies, our network of AmChams, we know that Africa is the market of today and the future. And so a market of 1.4 billion people, where the regulations are converging, there's harmonized standards, where there's an opportunity to be able to move goods freely across borders, to be able to leverage really the first of its kind, bold, ambitious type of agreement that the AfCFTA is, and the digital trade protocol in particular. We wanted to do our part in partnership to help support that evolution.
Good. And yesterday we heard from His Excellencies, both the presidents as well as His Excellency the Secretary General, how important, and even today we've heard quite a number of them, how important it is for public and private sector to come together to achieve the digital drive that we're all seeking. How important is public-private partnership in achieving this goal?
I think it's critical. I think it's vital. The heads of state spoke it, so I automatically believe that to be true. But more importantly, I think you've heard from business leaders, from stakeholders, from civil society over the course of the last 2 days, talk about the importance of business and government being in dialogue, and civil society stakeholders being involved. And to that point, an example of what our joint working group has been doing, and maybe two ways in which I think public-private partnerships can be important. In the joint working group, we followed the areas that were specifically outlined by the Secretariat where private sector input could be helpful. And so that was in the digital trade protocol, and that was in customs modernization and trade facilitation, and value chains development, areas where investors could be attracted in automotives, in pharmaceuticals, in agriculture, in transportation, and logistics. And so governments do a great job of creating frameworks, but in order to really stress test them to know if they work, it really involves the private sector. The private sector is going to be the community that uses these laws and these regulations. And so public-private dialogue, first of all, helps to develop rules and regulations that will be enabling for business. I started my career in government. I was an economist with the State Department, a diplomat, and I was involved in trade negotiations. And so you're often very focused on how to create a rule or regulation that works, finding alignment with your counterpart. And then at step 9 or step 10, when you're almost finished, you go to the business community and say, isn't this great? And sometimes the business community will tell you no, because it hasn't taken into account that which is really relevant to, or the use cases, for business. So public-private dialogue is really key, and I think we heard that from the presidents yesterday. But then public-private partnerships also allow companies not only to provide their insights in terms of the way policies work, but also if you give a vision to the business community of what it is that you want to achieve. Private sector, by its very nature, is focused on solving problems. And in fact, our CEO often says that if you have a solution to a problem, then it's really your duty to be able to bring more of that to the world. And so businesses bring solutions to a problem. And so if they can be invited into a a discussion, divided into a partnership, they can help co-create solutions. They can help provide training or capacity building or education around various issues. So there are a number of ways in which I think the process can be enriched by having a public-private engagement.
And you've listened to some of the comments that have come out, both from public side, and we just heard from the public side, and the private side. Are there specifics, areas where you think both public and private from Africa can take advantage, critical areas can take advantage from the U.S. business centers?
That's a great question. So I wouldn't say that there are direct parallels, but there's certainly some lessons learned that the Chamber has benefited from in the United States. We have, last year, the Chamber published a report on the impact of digital trade or the power of digital trade in the United States. And what we found is that directly and indirectly, 3 million jobs were tied to digital trade. As we've been talking about over the course of the last 2 days, digital trade is growing at a rapid pace. The digital economy is growing 3 times faster than traditional, economic sectors at large. And so it is a mover, it is a grower of economies. But also we have 50 states that have 50 distinct sets of rules that have to operate together in order for a company in California to be able to effectively sell in Nevada. You have to work at the federal level to establish rules and laws that make that effective. And one of the things we've particularly learned has been in advocating to our own United States government, our U.S. trade representative, around the rules that they set both in the United States, but how they set rules for how we can engage in the world. And I think that it's been very effective that we are not just coming to collaborate with the AfCFTA Secretariat with a set of ideas that are not tested in our own experience in bringing those same issues to the United States, but in markets around the world, because we have the privilege of getting to engage with markets around the world and learning from those experiences.
Yeah, and are there specific call to action that you would propose for those who are seeking to support this implementation of the AfCFTA?
I anticipated that because I know call to action is very critical to this dialogue. How do we go from here and activate on all the things that we've been involved? So I'm going to share with you a summary, but I'm going to give you a couple of key ideas. I was recently at an engagement with the Director General of the WTO, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and it wasn't related to this specific issue, but it is sort of my call to action right now, which is deploy yourself. If you have insights, if you have knowledge, if you have expertise, it is incumbent upon you to deploy yourself. And so that's my call to action to the business community. It can feel like, particularly for companies who are small and medium enterprises, which we heard just a moment ago are 98% of the business community on the continent. In the United States, 99% of the business community are small and medium enterprises. So it can appear intimidating to share those experiences. I think it's incumbent upon you to deploy yourself so that we have a better understanding of how to make sure these rules and regulations do enable the business growth that we all want to see and the effectiveness of this digital trade protocol. I would say to our government partners, it really is, I think, a call to action to continue to remain engaged with stakeholders. That having so many, different varied voices in the process only continues to refine and, enhance the rules and regulations that are being developed. And I would just say, as a third thought, I'm a fan of three recommendations always. I'd say that, and also thinking about how we go forward from here. We've talked about the general frameworks and what the AfCFTA sets out. I think the next stage is also going from signing to activation at the domestic level. There are a number of international conventions as well, I think, that could create the groundwork for investors, both on the continent and those who are around the world, and really paying attention to not just signing on to those agreements and conventions that set rules for cyber policy, for data and the like, but then really working hand in hand at the country level to make sure things align with this innovative digital trade protocol.
All right, so I'm going to turn to the audience while I let you sort of chew on the fact that
What do you say to those who are saying that America has an agreement? There's that AGOA, for instance, and we have the AfCFTA. Where do we draw the synergy? But audience, maybe if I come to you, any questions for Kendra from US Business Center? Do we have any questions? Okay. I think it's on. Yep.
Thank you very much. Just one question from my end. Kendra, I'm always happy to hear you speak. You have this passion that I really do appreciate. So I was just wanted to touch on what the moderator was saying. You know, I'm from Ethiopia, so we've seen the effect of AGOA withdrawal, and then currently we see the Trump administration, and I feel the tone from the leadership is not echoing to what you're saying. Currently, Trump is really advocating for a manufacturing industry to go back to America. So I was wondering, how do you see the next 4 years? How is Africa going to work with America? And I would really appreciate your candid response on this, because my understanding is there isn't much room for collaboration with the new administration.
Thank you for giving me a softball question. I appreciate that. I would say a few things. First, I'm an optimist, so I think that comes through in how I speak about scenarios. I recognize that what we're talking about is a very real scenario that doesn't inspire optimism. But I would say, in this moment, take note of who is showing up, and it is the US private sector. And keep in mind, regardless of who is in the White House, who is in Congress, who is governing in the United States, that while Africa in general has bipartisan support, it's never been enough, regardless of who was the head of state. There's never been enough attention to the power of this partnership. And so in some ways, my mandate is the same, it just on a more rocky terrain. That being said, the business community makes very long-range decisions. So investors who are interested in the continent are taking long-term decisions. You know, it takes a long time to build manufacturing, in a country. It takes a long time to do an assessment, to establish rules for an investment. And so the private sector remains, and that will be beyond 4 years, 8 years, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. That's how business thinks about the rules. Now, the scenario that we live in is a very different one. It would be my hope that we had an AGOA that was already reauthorized, that we had institutions that were focused on private sector-led growth still operational in the United States. But while this reform effort, if you will, is undertaken, it's incumbent upon us in the private sector to raise our voice about the importance of engaging with the continent, about having those tools and those mechanisms that support the continent's growth, and to demonstrate how that fits into the mantra of how this makes the United States stronger, safer, and more prosperous. And I can't think of a better way to make our nation stronger, safer, or more prosperous than engaging with the African continent, gaining from the dynamism and the innovation that we've seen on display here, being partners in that growth story. Because as Africa grows, and if you are a partner that shows up in a meaningful way, you have the opportunity to co-create economic development and jobs. And so my call to action remains. I'm really privileged to work with a group of companies who maintain that commitment to the continent, and to continue to use our voice to educate our government so that we're not living through another missed opportunity. Thank you.
Great. Any question? Probably just take one if there is any, but I doubt. Do we? No. Okay. And that should be the last, probably.
Good evening. My name is Kusantan Tangi Chilebe. The question that I have is about You've talked about the opportunities that we can take advantage of and how the American private sector is trying to invest in our country, in our continent, and in our country in particular. But the question that I have is that the feeling of the people, especially the young people on the continent, is that when you so-called investors come here, you are just externalizing the resources that you make. You are not really, the impact is not being felt by the people on the ground. How do we change the narrative? Right now in Africa, we have seen what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire, where they are saying we do not want the West anymore, because the West has been coming to us for a long time, but it is not being felt by our people. We are seeing your countries getting wealthy whilst our people still remain in abject poverty. What assurance can you give to the young people that what you are bringing will bring meaningful change to our people, and it will not just be another way of it will not be another academic activity? How do we benefit from these linkages? Because what usually happens is that the investor comes, rips our minerals, externalizes the profits, and our people remain with nothing. Or we remain with, if you look at what's happening in my region on the copper belt, the multinationals have come, they have dug our copper, they have gone back. We have been left with environmental damage. So what guarantee do we have that what you are offering, what you're bringing to the table will actually benefit us? And how can the young people like myself benefit from what you are offering? Because when you look around in this gathering, it's a gathering of just old people. The young people are not brought to the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are quite a number of young people around, actually, including yourself. Please.
I don't mind speaking as an old person. I certainly appreciate your passion and your question. I don't have all the answers. I'm here to speak about how we can partner together. And so I think the passion and the accountability that you're calling for, I'm back to Dr. Ngozi's statement, deploy yourself. I think that the rules and the policies that enable trade, they enable trade and investment, and it's an incumbent upon us to be stakeholders in what those rules and laws look like and be part of the co-creation of those. And so I encourage you, as a young person who is a stakeholder in what the future of this country and this continent looks like, to be part of how those rules are shaped. In terms of my work, again, my job is to help be part of co-creating solutions. And so I don't run away from the fact that multinational companies can come and be part of an ecosystem where they are investors, where they are allowing for and enabling skills transfer. They're employing local talent and elevating that talent's opportunities. They come and embed themselves in the fabric of a country and really have, in that country, in that community, a desire to be good partners and be good corporate citizens. And so I'm proud to represent U.S. companies, African companies who are part of my membership who are doing business the right way. And I encourage you, if there are areas, and we're talking about digital trade in this scenario, and so I think the ecosystem in particular is important to have players of all sizes and capacities who are there strengthening each other and developing and spurring innovation. But in sectors outside of that, and even in the digital trade space, I think deploying yourself, using your voice to really shape what the rules look like is, I think, the key to the outcomes that you're seeking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for Kendra. We can do it better, please. Let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, Kendra. Gaitha. I want a picture. Good. We're out of picture. Let me quickly make this announcement while we prepare to take our photograph. We deliberately wanted to get this session linked into the next session, which is a cocktail session, and we don't want you to miss that. We have 15 minutes to get there. 15 minutes to 7 o'clock. And it starts exactly 7 o'clock. It's a networking cocktail with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment Nigeria, hosted by Honorable Jumoke Oduwole, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. She wouldn't forgive us if we don't show up there. So please, we're all heading there right after here. Thank you very much.
true lover, my baby wants to give me happiness. My blood, my blood, my blood.